Ready to roll? Ready, Brad? Yeah. All right, good. Okay, so, well, good afternoon, everyone. I know that many families and students have been waiting patiently for more details on how school will look this fall in Prince Edward Island. I'm proud today and pleased to be with the Minister of Education and Lifelong Learning, Brad Trivers, the Honourable Brad Trivers, and of course, Dr. Heather Morrison, our Chief Public Health Officer. To begin, on March 15th, our province made the difficult decision to close schools in an effort to ensure the health and safety of staff and students and to minimize the risk of a potential spread of the coronavirus. Very quickly, a plan for at-home learning was developed and kitchen tables were turned into desks. Parents and guardians stepped up to support their children in their studies while continuing to manage their own work requirements. Teachers and educational staff found ways to make learning from home interesting and engaging. And I want to thank all of them and all of you for adapting and for ensuring that our students continued learning during this pandemic. Over the past few months, the Department of Education and Lifelong Learning and our education authorities have been working together in partnership and consultation with parents, guardians, students, administrators, and unions to try to develop clear and detailed guidelines for our children to safely return to the classroom this fall. Our focus has been and continues to be getting our children back to school in a way that makes their day as normal as possible, as normal as it can be in this time we call COVID, with full school days, 5 days a week, as we know that this is the very best option for their overall well-being and learning. In order for this to happen, we need many things, but first of all and foremost, we need to all work together. And there will need to be measures that will be put in place that will protect the health and safety of our school communities. And our plan will allow children and students to learn in the classroom with their peers safely. There are still many unknowns about this virus. We learn more about it each and every day. But we know more now than we did in March for sure. And the health and safety measures that we have put in place under the guidance of our Chief Public Health Office have allowed us to relax some of our public health restrictions sooner than other provinces. As you all know, we currently have no active cases of COVID-19. We have thoughtfully and progressively and somewhat cautiously reopened our province and our economy. And we have been and continue to be renewing Prince Edward Island together. That said, like the rest of the country, we are anticipating and preparing for a potential second wave of COVID. And in doing so, we had to weigh the risks of COVID-19 against those risks that are associated with keeping our schools closed. The physical and mental health and the personal development of our children and students has to be and will continue to be a top priority. Therefore, I'm happy to announce that on September 8th, our children and students will go back to school in Prince Edward Island full-time. Our plan is backed by the best possible information and expertise, knowledge, and guidance of our Chief Public Health Office. We are taking every possible measure to ensure our schools are safe for everyone. This includes minimizing to the best we can the interactions of our students in school and to continue to do as all Islanders have been doing each and every day by practicing proper health protocols such as physical distancing. Our plan includes staggered arrival and departure times, recess and lunch breaks, and it will include additional staffing and support for our students. Our plan is designed to minimize the risk of a COVID-19 outbreak in our schools. We know that these adjustments will take some time to getting used to, and we will have that added support, that extra support where it is needed to help our children, our families, and our students and our staff adjust. We know that Islanders will want to return to school, and we know that we want that return to school to be successful. And for that to happen, as I have said earlier, we need to work together as we all have an important role to play. Families will need to support their children in adapting to the changes and public health measures that are being put in place as they return to school, and to keep in mind that they are designed to keep everyone as safe as possible. And some of those measures will include mask education, health screening at home, and where possible, helping with the transportation to and from school for our students. We also know, having lived our expertise of living with COVID these past few months, that our plan, while thorough and detailed and based on the best information we have, is not perfect. Everything that we have done in terms of our COVID response as a province has been based on the best information that we have, and as needed and as we learn going forward, our plan will need to be adjusted and changed, and if so, it will be done. Teachers and administrators will educate and support students in adjusting while keeping an open dialogue with families and the Department of Education so that everyone remains informed and any concerns can be and will be addressed as they arise. The Chief Public Health Office will closely monitor the back-to-school plan against the health of Islanders and will be intervening with further public health measures or restrictions as required or needed. Our plan allows our students the opportunity to engage in all subject areas and ensure healthy, strong minds with the continuation of breakfast, snack, and lunch programs, including our new Healthy School Lunch program that will provide increased access to healthy, affordable, and local food for our island students this coming year. The health of our island children is our top priority, and we are taking every step and precaution to ensure a successful and safe school year. When students go back to school this fall, they and their parents and their guardians can be rest assured in knowing that the classrooms are safe and our children and our students, their staff, and all educational staff are supported. We know that with the support of all Prince Edward Islanders, we can make this happen safely and successfully. And with that, I will now pass it over to Minister Trivers and ask him to provide more in-depth detail of our back-to-school plans. Over to you, Brent.
Well, thank you very much, Premier. And indeed, the 2019-2020 school year was a challenging one for everyone involved with the public education system. And while the unprecedented situation created challenges and caused significant disruptions, it also showed the resilience of teachers, principals, school staff, and especially students and their families. So the situation with COVID-19 continues to evolve, and unfortunately, it will not be over by the time the 2020-2021 school year begins. So first, I want to thank our two public school boards and department staff for their immense work over the past few months to lay the foundation for a safe and healthy school year. We certainly are in uncharted waters, and we are planning for all potential scenarios. But our number one priority is having our 62 public schools open full-time, 5 days a week, for the over 20,000 students island-wide. We know that in-person, in-class learning is the best learning and social environment for students to thrive, and with that in mind, have put together comprehensive operational plans for our public school system. We are determined to do everything we can to safely return to school this fall. As a parent myself, I've had my own questions and concerns about how we safely go back to school, but through the input and support of our education partners, including educational authorities, administrators, teachers, unions, parents, and students, we have developed a clear and detailed guideline for success. All principals received the CPHO-approved operational guidelines on July 28th and are now developing customized school plans specific to their school population, physical layout, and grade levels. We are committed to having all individualized school plans available for students and parents by the end of next week. Additionally, 6 principals have been working with the Education Department to develop detailed operational plans for their schools that will serve as sample schools to support our school administrators in their efforts and give parents, students, and staff an idea of exactly what to expect this fall. The Return to School operational guidelines, those 6 detailed operational plans, along with other useful information for this school year, are now available at princeedwardisland.ca back to school. I'd encourage everyone to visit. We have been open and transparent throughout the planning process and have sought input from stakeholders, including the PEI Home and School Federation, District Advisory Councils, PEI Association for Newcomers to Canada, PEI Council People with Disabilities, the PEI Children and Youth Table, the unions, and many others. And I'd like to publicly thank them for their time and input. And we will continue to seek feedback. And we will continuously improve the plans to make sure they are the best they can be for students and all impacted. We invite parents and students to submit their questions and feedback through the website and are planning an opportunity for even greater public engagement in the coming weeks. The safety of all students and staff is our focus in getting kids back in the classroom. So parents and students will be asked to pre-screen for symptoms of COVID ID at home, and will be provided a checklist to help with this. And anyone experiencing symptoms must stay home. That's anyone experiencing symptoms must stay home. Students, staff, and principals will monitor for symptoms, and schools will have protocols in place when and if someone does experience symptoms at school. This will include the immediate use of a mask and separation from the rest of the cohort in a designated location until they can safely leave the school. It will also mean extensive cleaning of any shared spaces. Enhanced cleaning protocols for high-touch areas and of shared materials, as well as good hand hygiene practices, will be important. Staff and students will be reminded frequently throughout the day of these necessary measures. To support the health and safety of students and staff, allow for increased cleaning, proper resources for cohorts, and to address learning gaps and the well-being of students, additional staff resources are anticipated and will be provided. And I know it's important that students and parents know what the school will look like. So on the plans for masks, so it is highly recommended that staff in all schools, kindergarten to 12, that's all staff, wear non-medical masks inside school facilities when physical distancing cannot be maintained. Now this could include the classroom if physical distancing is not possible. So we are highly recommending that students in grades 7 to 12 wear non-medical masks inside school facilities when physical distancing cannot be maintained, and this includes hallways, washrooms, classrooms, and during emergency procedures. Students in kindergarten to grade 6 may wear a non-medical mask inside school facilities if they wish. On buses, we highly recommend that all students, kindergarten to grade 12, as well as bus drivers, do wear non-medical masks. Staff who work with students who have medically complex conditions will have greater PPE and will wear shields and gloves. So, what about cohorts? So students will work in designated cohorts, and staff, including teachers, educational assistants, and cleaners, will also be assigned to specific cohorts. Each school may have a different size cohort, but schools will ensure cohorts will be as small as possible. When possible, these cohorts will remain in a physical zone with designated entries and exits, washrooms, lockers, and sections of the playground. Directional signs, staggered arrival and departure times, recess and lunch will help minimize interactions, just like the Premier said. For instance, an elementary school may choose to separate cohorts by grade level. The first cohort could enter and exit the school using the main door, while the second cohort enters and exits through the side doors. The first cohort could have recess from 10 to 10:15, while the second cohort has recess from 10:20 to 10:35. And now there will be times, particularly at the intermediate and high school levels, where cohorts may need to mix for instructional reasons. If this is the case, students will remain grouped in their cohorts, for example, by seating arrangement within a class. I want to make it clear that although in some instances we will need to be creative in how we deliver programming, students will have the opportunity to participate in all curriculum. That includes music, physical education, industrial arts, and electives. As well, additional effort is being made to ensure that students recover learning, that teachers and staff are supported to make adjustments, and that all learning areas can continue to be delivered. By focusing on what was omitted this past spring and on key areas of the curriculum early in the school year, schools will be in a good position to minimize the ongoing impact of the pandemic on student learning. Now, school is much more than just in-class learning. So student committees, such as student council, leadership, and their events, will be allowed if they can follow public health guidelines, and we encourage virtual options. School sports will be paused during startup, but the Prince Edward Island School Athletic Association will work with the department and the Chief Public Health Office to put plans in place for their return as quickly and as safely as possible, beginning with those sports that typically start in September. And we will be there for students and staff. We recognize that this school year, will be different, and that children and staff may require additional emotional support, and we will be there to provide that support. Student well-being teams will continue, as will the support of public health nursing in the schools. School counselors have received specialized training, and principals are receiving training around how to support people who have experienced trauma. Guidebooks and other resources are being developed for students and staff. There is a lot to consider, and our plan will constantly evolve, but we can make the most of it. Our teachers, principals, and all education staff are dedicated and ready to welcome students back to the classroom. And our students are resilient. And parents, we have an important role to play in setting a positive outlook for the upcoming school year for our children. If we all work together, as the Premier said, I am confident we can have a great school year. With that, I'll pass it over to Dr. Morrison.
Thank you, Minister, Premier. Good afternoon. As a parent of school-aged children myself, I understand how many parents, teachers, and children may be feeling about the upcoming school year. And I think it's normal to feel nervous and uncertain as we adjust to our new normal. I know the time at home has been challenging, a challenging time for parents, and I want to commend each of you for swiftly adapting and finding ways to be there for your children. I also want to acknowledge how well island children have adapted to these strange and uncertain times. It has not been easy. I know they miss their classes, their teachers, the school staff, and their friends. It has always been our goal to find a way to safely send our children back to classrooms this fall, which I believe is the best place for them to learn, socialize, and grow emotionally. Returning to in-class learning is about much more than education. It is about the overall health and well-being of children. Our primary focus is on the physical health, social and emotional development, mental health, and education of our children. Like many things throughout reopening PEI, it is about balance and managing risks carefully. Yes, opening up schools, businesses, and other public places comes with some risk, but it's also important that we find ways to live with COVID-19 especially until we have a vaccine. The plan for the 2020-2021 school year includes many important public health measures to ensure that we are making back to school as safe as possible. The back to school plan was developed based on our local epidemiology of COVID-19. Since the pandemic began, we've had a low incidence of disease here. We've gone extended periods of time without cases, as long as 67 days. All of our cases have been related to travel, and we have successfully contained 2 recent clusters of illness. If the epidemiology of COVID-19 changes in our province, we may need to make changes to the measures outlined in the Return to School plan. Some may be relaxed, and some may need to be more stringent. The education system and our children need our collective help to support a successful return to school for the upcoming academic year. The reopening of schools will be more successful if we can keep the prevalence of COVID-19 low in PEI and contain community transmission. So it is incumbent that we all play our part to continue to protect ourselves and others by following basic public health measures. The reopening of school raises the bar for each of us to do better in this regard and demonstrate our support for the safety and education of our children and educators. As parents, we can help by getting our children used to wearing masks, washing their hands and keeping their hands to themselves, and not sharing toys. We can have conversations with our children about why these public health measures are important. Regarding the specifics of the plan, I'd like to share a few observations. Physical distancing is not an all or nothing scenario. It is really difficult to maintain physical distance if schools are operating at full capacity. Physical distancing is very challenging to implement with younger children, and it is more important in older students. Rearranging desks and workspaces to promote distancing, staggering drop-off and pickup, and moving activities outside whenever possible are effective measures to promote distancing. Also, non-medical masks are recommended for staff and students when physical distancing is not possible. Screening and monitoring of all individuals entering the schools is an essential part of the return to school plan. It's important that students and school staff stay home if they are ill, are aware of the symptoms of COVID-19. Contact tracing and testing are foundational outbreak management tools for public health. The schools will be keeping a daily record of attendance and visitor logs. Having this information readily available will be essential in the event of a positive case. The efforts to cohort students and staff will minimize the number of close contacts and make contact tracing more manageable. Cohorts of students and staff will be kept as small as possible. Even within the cohorts, the expectation is that students and staff will maintain as much physical distance as possible. We are reviewing the evidence continuously regarding the effectiveness of masks in schools. Our return to school plan takes a reasonable approach to masks that is consistent with our local COVID-19 epidemiology. The recommendation on masks in schools and in the general public will be reassessed in the event we have increased community transmission and our local epidemiology. Hand hygiene is one of the most effective strategies to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The return to school plan provides many opportunities for students to wash their hands throughout the school day. Students need to be taught to clean their hands properly, avoid touching their faces, and general respiratory etiquette. If there is a case of COVID-19 in a school, public health will be ready and readily available to respond to the situation. Similar to what has happened recently, public health will act quickly to conduct contact tracing and testing and provide guidance to the school and the education system. Our office will continue to support schools in the transition back to in-class learning. We are available to offer advice on infection prevention and control and communication to families and cleaning and sanitation practices, to name a few. It's extremely important that we recognize our collective responsibility to support the education system. We must take steps to keep the prevalence of COVID-19 low in the community and to limit community transmission. The Education Ministry has done their part in preparing the return to school plan to allow for in-school learning, and it is now really up to all Islanders to support them. I look forward to seeing Island children return to their classrooms, to their friends, to their teachers, to the school staff, and to a new normal. As we do so, we will all need to have the patience and kindness that we talk about every time as we look after each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison and Minister Trivers. And I just would conclude today just simply by saying that this has been a Herculean effort by many, many people, including the public schools branch, the CLSF, the Department of Education and Lifelong Learning, all the administrators, the teachers and staff, and all of the many, many stakeholders that the minister has outlined. But first and foremost, and most importantly, it's the parents and the guardians and the students who are in the middle of all of this, and they are the ones that we're working very hard to make sure they get back, as Dr. Morrison has said, to some kind of new normal. And this is an exciting announcement for us to be making today. Like everything we have been doing with COVID-19, there's a certain amount of caution and trepidation and everything else that we're feeling, but really, really confident, and wanted to just on behalf of everyone, thank the minister for his strong leadership on this file, and really, really asking all Islanders to play an important role in this most important decision today. And it's very exciting that our students will be back in school. So I wish teachers, students, parents, and all Islanders a great school year beginning September 8th. So thank you very much.